right, time for another episode of Sunday Golds, a Florida State baseball podcast. Arya Masudi and Chavi, the man, Chris Chavez, joining us here on the podcast. Is this the debut for you on the podcast?
It is, man. I was waiting for an invite last year. I never got it. So, I'm glad to be on here early in the season.
I'm not going to take the blame for it. It's not Brett's fault, but I am going to blame Brett for that. But he's going to join us shortly in about 10, 15 minutes. Brett Nevitt will join us here on Sunday Golds as well. Do want to make sure we thank our sponsors, of course, Alumni Hall and Metro Deli. They have been on board and helped us out now, making sure that we can travel to some road series and making sure that we can provide for this show. At Alumni Hall, you can get 15% off of your entire order with code SG15. Jerseys, caps, hoodies, you name it, jackets, they got it. If you go to the store there off Timber Lane in there in Market Square, they've just moved over the last year. You can use this code SG15 for 15% off, and you can go to alumnihall.com for more on that as well. And I got to shout out Metro Deli. You guys go see them on South Monroe Street, metrodeli.com. That cheeseburger wrap is real. And Rob and Johnny Mack and the boys do such a good job over there. And make sure you go out there and tell them that Sunday Gold sent you, because they have been a big part of this show. Chavez, my man, you've been a broadcast partner of mine now for a couple of years in the booth. It has been a pleasure to become your friend over the last couple of years and bounce ideas off of you, not just in baseball, but in life, and being able to talk to you. So welcome to the show. This is a good Florida State baseball team, right, that we had a lot of questions about going into the year. We started watching scrimmages. So I want to get your general thoughts on the weekend. We only played 2 games, but I think we saw a lot of different things from the 2026 Noles.
Yeah, you did. And I think, we talked a little bit about it on air, obviously. And, Mendez came out Friday night and put any doubters to rest that guy should be a Friday night starter. And he looked the part. I think we and you were really excited just to see how good the secondary stuff was going to be for him and the fastball command. And game 1, he looked like midseason form.
He did. I thought he came out and he commanded all of his pitches. He'd been working on some different things, right? And he comes out and says he wants to use a different slider, right? And he's got a harder changeup, but he's trying to show that he can step in and be a Friday night guy. What is that maturation process like, Chavi, for a kid going from his first year to his second year as a full-time starter, especially at this level, getting these types of innings?
I think it's a big deal, especially for someone who, the great thing for him was he was a weekend starter anyways. And granted, it was on Sunday, but he was able to watch those guys in front of him, and Jamie and a guy in Jamie Arnold, first rounder, who is arguably one of the best pitchers in FSU history. He's able to watch that and realize, hey, man, I've got to step it up a notch to be that guy. And I think, like I said, he's starting to show all of that right there where he can be that guy. And like you said, he worked on the changeup. He added a cutter, the slider, the curveball. He's got a great mix. And so I think there's a lot of great things to still improve on for him. So sky's the limit right now for Mendez.
Give me your thoughts overall on the pitchers for the weekend. Start with the starters. We only got to see 2 of them, right? Because Beard got scratched late there. What did you think of the starters and then the bullpen? Who shined in the pen that really impressed you?
Well, like we said, obviously talked about Mendez. More, again, first outing, maybe a little jitters. He looked good early and then kind of let the fastball command get away from him, which I don't think any of the coaching staff nor us are really concerned about that. We've always heard about his command, so I think it's going to be there. I think he might have just had a little bit of jitters there. The breaking ball was real, 3,000 spin rate. It was off the charts. So I think you're going to be fine, and they'll bump him back to a Sunday guy with Beard coming back, hopefully. And, again, Beard was someone we really wanted to see because we'd heard great things about him. And then you look at the bullpen, you got Abraham, who is, his stuff is as good as anybody's on the entire staff. So I think if you get him coming and being a little bit more consistent this year than the years past, that just bodes well for a bullpen that's already starting to look at Stokes. Came in throwing 98 miles an hour, and I think, by the end of the year, you're probably going to see 100 miles an hour from him. Slider was good. You really just go down the line, and I was just thoroughly impressed with everybody who we kind of ran out of the bullpen.
Yeah, I thought Purcell really shined, right? He comes in, and
Yep.
you and I had seen him in the preseason a little bit, and it just seemed like it was a tick better, right? When the lights came on, and he came on the broadcast with us on Saturday, and he said he had never pitched in front of that many people, in front of
And
nearly
that's
1,000 people. And he said it took him a second to understand what was going on. And then he said it fueled him, and the adrenaline kicked in, and we saw a 94-mile-an-hour fastball, and he started to look like the closer that he was at USC just last year.
Yeah, and like you said, 94, because we didn't see that from him when we saw him in the fall. And we were seeing 90, 91s, and he came in, and it was just like a totally different person. I mean, the stuff was the same, but just like you said, just a tick better. You know, that adrenaline got in him. I think you're going to see that from him for the rest of the year. The breaking ball is great. He's got the funky delivery straight over the top, so the fastball carries. But he comes in with that closer mentality that you kind of see. But he may not close a lot because they're going to want to bring him in when the game is on the line. So he may come in a fifth inning, a sixth inning. It may be the ninth inning sometimes, but they're going to depend on him when the game is on the line, and he's going to come in and throw whenever that is.
Who were some other arms out of the pen that you thought showed well? Stokes, you mentioned, and the gasoline and the octane that it comes with. Cooper Whitehead came in and did a really nice job too. And the Noles are looking for lefty options, aren't they, out of the pen, and to find some depth there.
And he did. And his changeup, we talked about Mendez's changeup, but his changeup was outstanding too. Arm speed was wonderful. The breaking ball he was able to hit with it. Fastball command was good. Then you look at O'Leary. O'Leary was just as good coming in early. Kind of got to him a little bit late, but when he first came in, it was 86-mile-an-hour sliders that were just unhittable. I mean, he could have told him it was coming and you weren't going to hit it. So, again, I think the coaching staff has a lot of great things to look forward to this year with this with this new bullpen that they're going to be throwing out there.
What did you think of the lineup overall in terms of, Link decided to go Stutzer to start on opening day at the DH, and then they settled into something they liked in game two with Sheffield, who really came to life. Dowd ended up being the leadoff man, right, and has shown that he's capable of doing that and doing it at a high level. And Miles Bailey did what Miles Bailey does. Then DeLon Malier showed some pop. But what were your overall takeaways from that 1 through 9 as you watched them a couple of times there over the weekend?
I mean, I think right now with the way where Link has the lineup, I don't know if you're going to see a lot of movement in it right now because everything is working. And I think as a coach, that's all you're trying to find is the wheel going to spin easily. And right now that wheel is greased up pretty good and moving well. You said Stutzer got that start, but then Sheffield comes in and just absolutely looks unbelievable at the plate. Discipline, spitting at balls that are borderline pitches, not fishing at them. I mean, he didn't get out. Open week, nobody got him out. And then he goes to JU yesterday and gets 2 more knocks yesterday. So, I mean, again, good problems to have if you're a coaching staff to know that you have weapons to interchange. But right now, I mean, what he's got there, like you said, Dowd, Williams down in the lineup, he laid down some bunts, swinging the way he did, made a great defensive play in center field. It's looking a lot better than I think they even expected right now early in the year.
How do they protect Miles, in your opinion? What's got to be that key there? They've tried, so far it's been Sheffield at 2, Fisher at 4, with Carnes batting 5th. Now, Chef has shown that he can really hit the baseball in his first 2 games, and even last night against Jacksonville, against JU, he had a couple more hits. Miles walked 3 times against JU. I think you're going to start seeing some of that, and it's going to depend on what the guys in front of him, behind him do. So how would you best go about it to find protection for Miles in the lineup?
Well, we had our meeting with Link. Obviously, Fisher's getting that first opportunity, and he showed it in the second game with 4 hits. He had key hits last night. He is going to have to be ready because he's going to get pitches because Miles isn't going to get them. And at least early in the year, they're going to force Carnes and Fisher to beat them. I mean, we always did it when we were there. 11 would always tell the pitching staff when we sat down and Coach Shoop, we would sit down and they'd be like, hey, here's the lineup. These are the guys that can't beat us. And right now, all these teams are sitting down and they're looking at it and going, Miles Bailey will not beat us today. And so that's when Fisher and Carnes and those guys hitting behind him have to step up and take advantage of that.
What have been your thoughts so far on the defense, right? You pitched at a very high level, drafted, and that the defense behind any pitcher matters. They had about as good of an infield defense as you could have possibly had last season, especially up the middle. What have been your early returns after one weekend and a game against JU on what the guys up the middle and in the infield can do?
I still see a little bit of work that needs to be there, but it was like that 2 years ago when Faroe and Lodi's first got there. They had a little bit of communication, especially balls up the middle. Hey, you got it, I got it, a little bit of stuff there. But, I mean, Fisher looks solid. I mean, he's really back home. That's what he was in high school, as a shortstop. So, I think just, Frazier moving over to second base a little bit might take him a little bit of time. I mean, Link told us the first year we talked to Link, because he had to do it in minor league ball. He said it's a big difference when you move to that right side of the field, balls off the bat and what you're looking at. So, Frazier, he made one play out there, two diving play. He wasn't able to make throw, but he's so athletic and toolsy, and you have STs there too to maybe come in defensively later in the game. But I mean, there's talent, and it's going to be impossible to replace Lodis and Faroe. I mean, like you said, arguably maybe the best up the middle tandem, possibly numbers wise in FSU history. So that's going to be really tough. But I think all in all, with McCulley at third too and Bailey at first, it looked pretty good. First weekend, I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah. Tell me your relationship a little bit with Link, right? Pretty cool. I know did you guys just miss each other at Florida State playing wise? I think he had just graduated right before you got there. For it to come to a full circle, guys who dominated with Florida State in the 90s, to see him now coaching. I know you guys don't live far from each other either. To see him take Florida State back to that elite level, what has that been like for you and the friendship that you and Link have?
I mean, it's really cool because, like you said, yeah, he was a senior when I was a senior in high school, so we literally missed each other by 1 year. Selfishly, it worked out great for me because I always grew up wearing 10. So when he left, I was able to get my number and everything else. So I always laughed about that. I said I just lucked into getting it. But to see Link come back now, like as a coach, and see what he's gone through, you look at all the places he's stopped and the success he's had at those places and his determination in what he does. He's so disciplined in how he wants to do things. And I mean, I tell you, it's just like everybody wanted for 11. You wanted 11 to win it. And as a Noles, you just want the Noles to win it. But for Link's the same way. I think anyone who's ever played for Link is praying he gets that national championship because his dedication and how much time and effort he puts into this whole thing.
Yeah, he really cares. And I remember that opening press conference when he said, I will walk off that field one day with the trophy. And that's been really cool to see the level of intensity. And, there are days you and I will go down there and at BP, he doesn't want to talk to us.
Nope. and you know those days. You know those days just by the way he looks. You're like, all right, man, we're just going to stay up here on the top step.
It's funny. But how much have you enjoyed getting to call the game now from a different perspective, to get into the booth, all this knowledge that you have that when you played, now being able to put it back in the broadcaster, and how much fun do you have with that kid named Arya Masudi that might be a little bit annoying in the booth as well?
No, man, I'll tell you what, it's been wonderful, and I appreciate Lincoln and Chip Baker, putting a bug in Link's ear about me trying to do this. They just called me out of the blue, and I'm like, you know what, I'm always up for new adventures, and it's been wonderful. But man, I've learned a lot from you though in the booth. That's some of the things is you've been through it. You look at age, and there's a pretty good age gap between me and you. But when it came to it, your experiences there were exceeded mine, and I didn't know what to expect. And you've kind of really helped me along this way, and told me certain things on, when to talk, when not to talk. And you've always teed me up well. So, I mean, it's been great. And, getting to do more games with you and more for the team, it's been a really cool experience.
I joke with people because sometimes when the ball is hit 400 feet, mid-flight, Chavez will start punching me in the ribs or in my leg to finish the call. And Chavez is bruising me up as I'm sitting there next to him. But the passion, it's still evident, right? And
oh, man.
How much you love this game, not just the game, but the university and that program, and how much blood, sweat, and tears you put into it. It still runs, right, in your heart. And I know when you're not on the call, you're still watching the games. Just like any fan, you want to see this team and this program get that national title.
100%. And even like last night, you had a road game. My son's playing a high school game last night, and I've got my phone up watching the FSU game at the same time. So I'm trying to do it because, it is. When you come to this school or you grew up in Tallahassee, it's part of you. And so, you hear the jokes of people with colors and stuff, you bleed garnet and gold. I 100% believe I got some garnet and gold running through my blood. It means the world to me. I think I always took pride in the name on the front of my jersey meant a whole lot more than the name on the back of my jersey. And I think all those guys I played with, I think Link can contest to it too, because Link grew up here. This is his team. This is what means the most to him. And it's more than you, if that makes sense it's just a bigger picture, and it's the university, it's everything else. Like we talked about Link as a coach, but Link does all the other stuff that goes on to try to make the experience for the fans great. He wants to make sure everything is running great because that's how much the university means to him. And so I think, with me in the booth and getting to do this, like you said, full circle, I always laugh, and me and Link have jokes about it from time to time. But, when I threw my no-hitter in 98, Link was actually doing the color of the game on Sunshine Network with Gene Deckerhoff for that game. So it's kind of really neat. And you talk about full circle. Now he's the coach on the field again, and now I'm in the booth. So it's pretty cool.
What's the hardest part about broadcasting? Do you think it's trying to simplify in layman's terms to help the fans and those watching at home understand? Because you have all this knowledge, right, that you want to put out there. Is it all the elements with the graphics and the replays and all that? What would you say has been the most challenging part? And tell me what's been the most rewarding part of getting to do some of these broadcasts now.
I would say the first year, the most challenging part was not using certain words, because we have to make the broadcast for the most part, 50-50. We can't look like we're, homers for FSU. But my problem is I am a homer. And so I was saying we a lot. And so you would always be like, dude, looking at me like, you got to stop. And I'm trying. And it got better. And the second year pretty much never happened. And this year, obviously not so far. And just trying to learn the ins and outs, like you said, being able to hear someone in your ear while you're talking at the same time and not letting that affect what you're doing. But Kirby Cantor and all those people have done such a great job with helping me out too, as well as you, and just doing things and teaching me along the way. And it was tough the first year. I'm not going to lie. There were some times that I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off, but it's just, it's kind of like anything else. The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, you do a great job, man. I've had many people comment, from they like the sound of your voice to what you say to all the different things that they've come up with in terms of enjoying your broadcast, right? You do a good job of breaking it down. And I think from the pitching standpoint, you really get it. So it's been fun. The chemistry's building right in that booth. And we
Absolutely.
had, I think, a Clemson player, Dominique Listy, this week on X, on Twitter, said, I think Florida State has the two best broadcasters, and it's not particularly close for a second place. So
I did not know that. I like that. That's pretty awesome.
So that went viral on social media. So it's been a lot of fun there. We're going to add Brett Nevitt on here. I'm going to get him. He added himself because he's a pro. There you are, Brett.
What's going on, Brett?
How's it going, guys?
Missed you this weekend, man. I miss you up here.
Hey, I got to listen to you guys on the broadcast instead. That was pretty fun as well.
Brett, how much fun has it been to listen to Chavez on the broadcast? I mean, he brings a certain level of expertise that I think especially when you listen around the country to some of these other digital broadcasts going on the apps, you're like, thank God you have a Chris Chavez in the booth.
Yeah, I think you guys do a really good job of having a feel for the game, and especially for a feel of what's going on in the mounds and just a feel for how, players are dealing with this stuff in games. So I really enjoyed getting to listen to it for the first time really in depth this weekend. Obviously missed being at Hauser, but I did enjoy getting to listen to you guys on the call. So yeah, it's definitely a lot different than some of the other broadcasts you see out there. And I've been watching a lot of Wheels recaps this weekend. So I've gotten to hear a lot of different broadcasts, but really enjoyed getting to listen to you guys this weekend.
Well, we appreciate that. All right. So now that we have the three of us on here, Chavi and Brett, we'll kind of go round table. And Brett, I want to bring you in to talk a little bit about the JU game, because you and I just did a podcast episode a couple of days ago. You can listen to that on Apple and on Spotify. what were your thoughts last night as you're watching FSU play JU? It's not very often that you go to Johnny Sessions Stadium and run rule JU. Those games have usually always been tight against Florida State. Chris, you know that from when we're broadcasting them too, that it feels like for whatever reason, JU plays really well against Florida State. So, Brett, I'll start with you. What were your takeaways from the 13-3 win in 8 innings?
Yeah, I thought it was an impressive, dominant, and clean win, and you don't get many of those over at JU, like you mentioned. And the pitching was really clean. I thought Manka did a good job in his 3 innings of work, and I thought the zone was pretty small early on, or else he might have been a little bit cleaner. But overall, I thought he was good, and Johnny Abraham was really dominant in 2 innings of work, which was really good to see out of him, and that's what you can get out of John when it's in the zone and around it. Offensively, another good game. I thought for the most part they kind of gave what JU took what JU gave them. A lot of walks. I think JU walked 11 or 10 guys yesterday. So a lot of free passes, but they also came through with some hits when they needed to. Good to see the top of the order still with Dowd and Chef swinging it well. And then, a couple other guys, Fish continuing to swing it well too. So overall, good day. I don't know how Chase ended up with 0 hits on the stat line, but scored 3 runs. But some stuff going on there with scoring yesterday, which led to JU having 5 errors, but some home scoring. But overall, a really clean game. Didn't have an error to the last inning, so pretty good stuff yesterday.
Chavez, when a guy like Chase Williams gets on base, and were you able to watch last night's game at all or catch?
I was able to watch bits and pieces, and I'm again I kind of reiterate with Brett, how you go for 4 and score 3 runs. I mean, it's like you look at the line, like, how'd that happen?
Yeah,
it is. It's wild. Tell me from your playing experience, when a guy like that who can really move, obviously back in the day, Ricky Henderson did it to a lot of MLB pitchers. But when a guy like Chase is on first and you have to have him in the back of your mind to know that in 2 pitches he could be at third base, what kind of pressure does that put on the pitcher on the mound? And what kind of blessing is that for Florida State to have that kind of difference maker on first base?
It's enormous for FSU, and it's annoying for the pitcher. I actually struggled the most with him, even at the kind of hitter he is too, because he's a switch hitter. You have a guy like that, not super big. You're like, dude, I can't mess up. I do not want to walk him, but I also don't want to serve one up because he's so fast. If he hits one in the gap, he could be on third too. So you're going, those were the guys that I really struggle with. And when they get on the bases, it is an absolute nightmare of what it's just in your mind. It changes things that you do. I got a slide step here. Well, you may lose 2 miles an hour on your fastball there. And that guy up to bat might be hitting one off the screen or out of the stadium. So it definitely does a lot for FSU with him. And with speed coming up and other guys, if Stutzer can get back in the lineup and can start doing that as well, it changes everything, in my opinion, more for the hitters than it does anything else.
Yeah, it does. And Chase, scores on that wild pitch, and basically he manufactured a run by himself without a hit. And that's the type of pressure that I think Link has wanted, that athleticism on the base paths. And I think that's part of why having Stutzer on opening day was in the back of his mind to get him in the lineup. It's just to be able to put pressure in different ways. If this group doesn't hit 120 home runs, right, and it's not based on the long ball, you do have to find different ways to be able to pressure an opposing staff and an opposing defense. And you saw that come to fruition last night. Brett, the first few guys in the order, namely Dowd, Sheffields, and then we can have Fisher there in the 4-hole because Miles got walked 3 times. They had 6 hits, and they continue to show you something at the top of that order that's allowing Florida State to have some success offensively the last couple of games.
Yeah, I think specifically the one that keeps standing out to me that maybe we didn't expect coming out of the gate was Chef, and just the way that Chef continues to barrel balls up. And he had the double down the line yesterday, and also there was another swing on a ball to deep center on a fly ball that I think on some other days might leave the yard. And it always seems really hard to get the ball on a JU. It just seems like the wind off the river, and just it usually just seems like the ball kind of dies in the outfield there. But yeah, I've just been really impressed with the way that Chef's swinging it and the rhythm that he has at the plate and the way that he's able to barrel up fastballs, but also he's been kind of taking advantage of hanging breaking balls that you expect to get against some of the teams that you've seen so far, and he's impacting those. And I think it was really good to see him lift the ball to center the way he did, even though it didn't go out, because most of the time you're going to see Chef hit line drives, but I think he's got some more strength and impact in there if he can start to lift the ball a little bit more as well.
Yeah, Chavi, you kind of talked about it earlier before Brett popped on, but what Dowd and Chef have done and what Fish can do to protect Bailey, this is an offense that lost some really key pieces from last season. They went to the portal, right, to get some of these pieces. Dowd, namely, Sheffield could emerge. Could Fisher take that next step? It is going to be, I think, a cumulative effort, right, from the entire 9 to try and maybe close the gap from what they lost a year ago.
Totally agree. But like Brett said, and you just said, if you can get those first 2 guys in front of Bailey getting on consistently and Fisher behind him, they're not going to have a choice but to pitch to Bailey. I mean, you can't load the bases to get to Fisher. And so I think if these guys can keep doing that further in the season, that's going to be enormous for Miles too, to be able to get a pitch that he can actually do damage with, that he won't get that just pitched around. And I do appreciate him showing the discipline too, though, not trying to fish at these pitches because he's over anxious of going, man, come on, give me a pitch. I think that's showing the maturity for him too at the plate.
Yeah.
Ari, I was just going to add one thing on Dowd from yesterday. I thought, we know what he has with the bat, but seeing him take 2 extra bases on the base path yesterday, there was one, I think the ball kind of got away from the shortstop or second baseman, and he took third. And then also the fly ball into foul territory. That kind of let Miles drive him in to give them the 10-run lead and ultimately get out of there in 8 innings instead of 9. So seeing him be able to do that on the bases too, I think is really good to see.
And I totally agree with Brett there. He's got a perfect, it showed Fisher did it too over the weekend when the third baseman came in and didn't call time. Fisher went from second to third. Those little things kind of get missed in the game, and they're really big deals. And that shows kind of where Link's been emphasizing that base running started, last year, really emphasizing it. And you steal a run or 2 every game. That's a big difference at the college level.
It is. And I think Grant Wilk on YouTube, those of you who are watching right now, and if you're not, and you're listening on the podcast on demand, we have comments from YouTube on the live stream. Bailey's defense continues to get better, right? Miles is showing up in ways, not just in the lineup. I think everybody gets overwhelmed and wants to put the power on a poster, which they should, because as you saw on Friday, it's still glorious when he catches one. But his overall, I think, makeup has turned him. When people came up and they were like, is Miles Bailey a second or third round pick? I laughed because I go, that's a first round pick to me if he continues to hit for average and power, because the defense continues to get better. And last night he snagged a ball that, guys, I know you guys watched it on TV, but in person, it was unbelievable. Like I have to ask him what his vertical leap is, because for a guy that big, he went up and he high pointed it like a receiver, like Deuce Robinson trying to moss somebody on a football field. It was impressive. And I texted his dad immediately, Kevin Bailey, and I said, your kid just made a web gem, and that part of his game continues to grow. What have you guys seen from him as a complete baseball player? Brett, we'll start with you, and then Chavi will go to you on that.
Yeah, I think Miles is just a really special athlete for his size, and you probably could play him in other spots if you needed to, but you don't want to, just because of how good of a first baseman he's become and how valuable that can be. And just like, I feel like Miles, you feel really confident that he's going to pick balls that he needs to pick now at this point in his career. Like, I don't feel like we ever see him miss picks or anything like that. And the stuff he does around the base is really good. And, Chavez mentioned the walks he's taken. He had 3 more walks last night. And I think the big thing for Miles this year that the scouts will pay attention to will obviously be the K rate. If Miles can keep that like 25% or lower, I think there's a pretty good chance of him going pretty high in the draft. Like you mentioned, Arya, I think that's just the big number that they'll be looking at this year, because they know what the power is. They just want to see him have the K rate that he did over the second half of the season versus what the first half was. If that continues, he's got a pretty good chance to continue to trend up draft boards.
Again, totally agree with Brett there. I mean, you look at the things that he's done to grow as a player. He's not just concentrating on the hitting. The defense is real. It's there. I kind of compare him a little bit to Nick Kurtz. I mean, you kind of look at the similarities of them. Left-handed hitters, he can play defense. He can hit it. If he can cut the strike zone down, like Brett said, I don't see how you can't take him in the first round because the power is so real. And it doesn't matter what he hits with, wood, bat, aluminum, and he hits from foul pole to foul pole. I mean, and you look what Kurtz just did his first year in MLB. You have to think of that as a scout and go, look at his numbers. I mean, because his numbers are very similar to Kurt's were in college. So, I mean, that's kind of a comparison that if I'm a scout, I'm kind of comparing him to a little bit there. Is going, all right, let's get the K rate down or the strikeout rate down. Now we can talk because everything else is there.
Without a doubt. Can I give Brett some credit here? Because you mentioned Kurtz. A few years ago, I was raving about Brock Wilken, who outstanding player out of the state of Florida at Wake Forest. Brett was like, the Kurtz kid's better than him. And I was like, what? And Wilkins having like an all-world season, right? And he's hitting high 300s with almost 30 home runs. And you're like, dude, that kid's real. And Brett's like, you got to keep an eye on this Kurtz kid because he'll be pretty special. And that trajectory for Kurtz has been, man, he gets better and better. And I didn't think he would have this impact in as fast as he did with the Athletics. And now he's teammates with Jamie Arnold right out there in the Athletics. That kid is real. It's wild to think that. I mean, is there similarities, Brett, between Miles and Kurtz? Like, do you think that Miles can have that same impact that Kurtz did if he continues on this projection and his current trajectory?
Yeah, I think there definitely are, especially because I think one of the questions on Kurtz for a while was like, was he too disciplined? Like, was he too patient? Did he not swing enough? And I think for a while that was kind of my concern with Miles too. Like in high school, I felt like he kind of was almost too patient at times. And, with his power, you do want him to get swings off, obviously, if he's not getting pitched to. And I think that's what a lot of the local high schools did in Tallahassee, which was probably smart because you're not going to face many kids like him in high school. But I think as we've seen him get more aggressive is what's led to the K rate coming down and also some adjustments to the swing too. But I think mostly it's just been an adjustment in his approach and what he's thinking and how he's approaching pitchers. So, as long as he continues to hunt and do damage, I think he's trending in that kind of Kurtz path. But I don't want to take too much credit on Kurtz because at the time I thought that Kag should have been picked higher than him. That Kurtz has become in such a short amount of time.
Well, I think
real quick, really good.
Yeah, real quick, Arian, kind of just to feed off of what Brett just said too with it. If you kind of think about Bailey, I don't think anybody expected Bailey to do what he did his freshman year.
I don't think thought that was going to be capable that year.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he can keep doing that like Kurtz, I mean, who knows? You don't know now. It's gotten to the point now where scouts have great ideas, but you just don't know which player is going to end up jumping out and busting loose.
Can I ask Brett, remind us, was it because Miles he struggled his senior year at the plate a little bit with average? Is that part of what allowed him to make it to campus? Is that?
I think there were always just concerns with the swing and miss. And I think people just wanted him to go to the next level and kind of prove that the swing and miss issues weren't going to be enough to outdo like his power. Like he still was going to be able to produce the power despite some of the swing and miss concerns. So I think also just the number, like if Miles wanted to take a lower number, he would have gone. Like I think there were teams that were willing to give him 7 figures, but probably just wanted a higher number because he expected to go and perform at FSU the way he has to this point and get a higher number than that.
Yeah, well, one, I'm glad he made it to campus, whatever the reason. And two, I think the gamble is going to pay off for Miles to come and he's going to double whatever they were offering him, if not triple it. So good call there. Boys, let's a couple more notes on that JU game, and then we'll move on to what we want to see in Arlington this weekend at the Texas Rangers ballpark from Florida State. You mentioned a little bit Manka, big ticket, only had 50 pitches, right? Because they're trying to be cognizant of if they might need him this weekend out there or not with Beard status and if he can go. What did you see from Manka, Brett? He went 3 innings. I know the first inning was a little shaky as he was trying to settle in. He caught a break when the kid hit the liner to left field that Dowd made a play on. That could have led to some runs. But then he settled into me and he started pounding the zone. I think it was 32 strikes out of the 50 total pitches, and a lot of that came in innings 2 and 3 when he really settled in.
Yeah, I thought he showed a pretty similar look to what I saw from him in the Cape this summer when he was starting, and that's just someone that's looks really comfortable and confident in what they're doing and confident in his four-pitch mix that he's going to be able to get left and right-handed hitters out. I think the changeup last night really played against right-handed hitters, which was good to see, to be able to get some of them off the fastball. I think that the breaking balls, it took a little bit for him to get going in the zone, and I think that's why the first inning, I think a couple runners got on, but overall, mostly in the zone. Like I said earlier, I thought the zone was pretty small early on, or else he might have had one or two more Ks. But I just thought he looked really comfortable, and I'm pretty confident in what he's going to do. I just feel like he's going to go out there and fill up the strike zone with four pitches and be able to go comfortably against right-handed and left-handed hitters and be able to be pretty efficient overall. And you just feel like you know what you're going to get when he toes the rubber right now.
Chavi, I think my question for you on Manka, obviously last night he looked good, and you and I went out there and saw that, they were extending him to give him a shot for the weekend. Now he could still very well end up in the weekend for Florida State, but from his season last year, when he came in as a freshman that showed a little bit of moxie and pitchability and wanted to attack the zone and had that fearlessness to him, right? To a guy that can be a big contributor for Florida State this year. What do you make of what Peyton Manka can do for FSU in 2026 and his role on this team? Did we lose Chavi? Chavi, you with us?
I think so.
Yeah, Brett, well, I'll let you go while I get Chris back in here.
Yeah, I think Manka's role could definitely expand this year. I think, you feel pretty confident about what he is as a starter. And if someone was to move out of the weekend rotation, he's definitely number one to move into there and replace. But, if not, if you feel like later in the season, if your left-handed reliever options aren't working out, that he could definitely replace one of those guys as well if needed. And then someone else would have to fill in for him as the fourth starter. But I just feel like when he's on the mound, you're pretty confident that he's going to fill up the strike zone with four pitches.
Yeah, and he had them. Chavez, before we lost you there, I know we got you back in to the studio. From what you saw from Manka last year, right, as a freshman who comes in and had a fearlessness to him, right, and would attack and wouldn't really give up free passes to the stuff, maybe taking a step forward this year, what do you think he's capable of doing for FSU and the role that he could have on this year's team?
Well, definitely filling it up. Like you said, fill the strike zone up, because if he can come in midweek games and get you a consistent 6 innings, maybe even 7 innings, that saves that bullpen for the weekend. So I think he is just the right guy to do it. He's very similar. He reminds me a lot of Bellini in just the fact of left-handed guy, not going to overpower you with a fastball, but can beat you with the fastball because it plays up in the zone. And then with the breaking stuff, like you got 4-pitch mix for the guy, and he's confident with all 4 pitches. So he's definitely a guy, if they needed him to fill in during the weekend, he could definitely do it without any problem. But if you have him in that midweek, that's going to be really big for them, especially when you go and play a Florida team. You're going to have a guy that you feel confident going against UF.
And then last touch for me on this JU win, Johnny Abraham. That's what we want to see. Like, that's the version of Johnny A that this group has to have, right? I think he has to be a leader in this pitching staff, whether that's chances in rotation opportunities on midweeks, first guy out of the pen, shutting games down. Brett, that was what we wanted to see, right? 2 innings. The stuff has never been in question with John. It's been the consistency. Last night, his secondary offerings, he was landing them for strikes, getting swing and miss. And the fastball had command. 18 strikes on 23 pitches. I really want that to be a launching pad for John this season.
Yeah, and I thought you saw him use all of his pitches last night. I think the 3 strikeouts in that first inning of work were all on a different pitch. I think it was fastball, cutter, and curveball, or maybe I think it was changeup on the last one to get a left-handed hitter out. So you see how he can be a different kind of weapon for them, a multi-use weapon. Sometimes he can come out of the pen and be 1 inning guy, but you can also extend him if you want. We always see a lot of kind of, intensity out of John. You can see it from him out on the mound, and I think it takes him getting in rhythm for that to, lead to positive stuff. And last night we saw that. And, when he gets in a rhythm, he can really start getting it going and be pretty efficient for you. So I think that's something that you just hope that he can build off of.
Chavez, I'm curious from your playing experience, just you didn't really have many bouts of inconsistency. Like you were a guy who kind of came in there, knew where the zone was. Can you take us? All right, well, I'm glad you're saying that because that helps me make a point for Abraham.
Yeah, no, I definitely was a guy. I was gonna say I was definitely a guy who I could strike the first guy out on 3 pitches, walk the next guy on 4 straight, and get full count on the next guy, strike him out. I mean, I was known to put 11 through the ringer from time to time, but I think it took a couple of years for me to show that, hey, I might get in trouble, but I'm also going to get out of the trouble. I didn't have the stuff Abraham has. Abraham has starter stuff. I was a two-pitch guy. Abraham has 4 legitimate pitches, and they're all 4 really good pitches. To me, it always seems to be his fastball command that gets him in trouble. And I feel like when he gets in that rhythm, the curveball is going to be there for him. It's just that's his go-to pitch. And it was that for me too. I'd get 3-0. You were getting 3 breaking balls in a row if I got 3-0. So for me, I think for Abraham, it's just getting that together and just finding it to where he stays in that rhythm on a consistent basis. Because if they can do that, that guy literally is game-changing, in my opinion, for them in the bullpen. It could be really bad for the bullpen if he's not the guy he can be, or man, this could change the season for them.
I think we might have lost Chavi again there. We'll get him back on there. But Brett, I mean, to his point, yeah, I mean, it's been stuff, right? His whole career. He's shown you flashes of being really good. He's got to take that next step for you. And I think that's going to be huge for Florida State. If you can get a veteran presence that has been through all of the different levels, this could be huge for FSU.
Yeah, I think whenever you're adding another arm to the mix that you feel like you can really trust and feel like they're going to consistently give you the same thing day in, day out, it just adds to your depth. And, you know, obviously you just want to feel like you can trust every arm that runs out there in a leverage situation.
Anything else stand out last night before we move on to what we want to see this weekend against JU?
Yeah, I just think I'll mention a couple of the other arms that threw. Obviously, Gabe Nard got out there for the first time, gave up a 3-run homer. I think, you know, looked like a sinker that kind of got away from him and ran in, and ended up getting barreled up. But the first 2 batters, I think, were just ground balls that kind of found holes. But after he gave up the homer, retired 3 straight. That's a veteran guy that I think you feel like you still trust and that you still feel like you're going to use a lot. Jake Eccles is someone who, you know, I would be interested to see what the velo looked like last night. I've heard good things about Eccles in the preseason and someone that he could kind of like expand into a bigger role, kind of a fastball sweeper guy. So maybe a right v right matchup arm out of the pen. And also it was good to see Ben Barrett. I think he had a 3-pitch K on all 3 sliders. They got swings and misses coming in for Kevin Meeble. So it was good to see those guys get some action.
Yeah, big win, right? These are not easy against JU. A lot of Knowles fans there, as always. I think they announced a sellout at 1,500, and I'd be willing to bet you 1,300 of those were Seminoles. So good win for Florida State against JU on the road. And now we move on to Arlington, Texas, right? For the Amegy, I got to get this right. The Amegy Bank College Baseball Series. I think it's 3 weekends in a row, and they're hosting something like 18 total teams. And Florida State's pod has something along the lines of, you know, the 3 teams Florida State's playing, Auburn, Michigan, Nebraska, and then I think it's Kansas State and Louisville are also in it. And so they'll figure out how to play everybody. But, Brett, it's a big weekend, man. It's different for FSU baseball, stepping out into an interesting almost Link Jarrett called it a regional type feel, right? And it's not a weekend series. You can't scout everybody the same way that you would in a normal series. And to get one this early, I think is going to help Florida State get better ultimately for the season.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you're just going to learn a lot more about what you have, and you're going to learn a lot more about exactly what level of team you have at this point of the season and what your 1 through 9 actually works against, you know, that level of competition that you're going to be facing when you get to ACC play. And same thing with the arms. we don't know for sure if we'll see Beard this weekend, kind of a day-to-day thing. They said that they think he'll go, I think Link said, but, still a day-to-day situation there. But, really interested to see how the defense plays in a park that's big. Obviously, a big league park is going to play a lot bigger than the college stadium. So interested to see how they handle the field itself defensively, and also just the environment of playing in a big league park, because, none of these guys have really got to do that, at least on the college level. Some of them have obviously done it in showcases and stuff like that, but actually playing a game against another high-level college team with a lot of fans, it'll be interesting to see just exactly how they can handle that.
Chris, I think we got you back with us here. Did you play in anything like this in your college career early in a season where you're playing a round robin against a handful of teams? What kind of benefit can this have to a roster when they jump into some upper level opponents this early in the season?
I did. We played in Minnesota and got to play in the Dome in the Hormel Food Classic. So we did get to do that early in the year. And it's a big deal getting to play in that situation, because it's the atmosphere. They're getting to experience something, but it's also the competition. And so this will be a good test for them. It's sort of regional-like.
I will let you pick up.
I think maybe his Wi-Fi might be cooked at this point.
I think he's coming back. Here he comes.
I don't know what's going on, guys. I don't understand.
This is the remote era of Sunday Gold. So
I mean,
how
sorry.
it goes. But you're back. Finish your thought.
No, just what I said. It's very regional-like. So I mean, they're going to be in 3 games, just like a regional would be. You got 3 really good teams. So I think this gives them an opportunity to kind of see what it feels like to do that in that situation. The only difference is how big of a crowd is going to be, because the one thing in those stadiums, it can get echo. It'll echo. You'll hear every word that anybody says when there's not a lot of people there. So that is kind of a different thing.
You're catching strays in the comments, my man.
Yeah, I see that. Wi-Fi. Man, I guess so, man. It's that constant. I don't get it. Man, I like that one right there. That's a good one.
This is awesome. The comments, guys, if you're listening to the pod right now on audio only, you're missing out. I would highly encourage you to go watch YouTube and watch the video version of Sunday Golds. But no, I mean, jokes aside, Chris, it's big, right? Because you're going to play teams that, are different. I think Big Ten teams are different than an SEC team in Auburn. And again, I think Chris just froze up on me. So Brett, it's going to be 3 different opponents, right, man? And, I think Michigan is very underrated this year. They've already shown that they can play at a high level last weekend in Arizona. And then Nebraska as well, who's been back-to-back Big Ten tournament champions, right? So 3 different teams with 3 different pitching profiles and 3 different types of lineup profiles. This should give Florida State, I think, a little bit of a pop quiz on different styles. And we'll find out what exposes Florida State and what ultimately the Noles have the advantage in as we move into the rest of non-conference play and into the season for ACC.
Yeah, I think that's the fun part about playing 3 different teams in 3 different days instead of just going and playing someone in like a home and home series. You're going to get to face different lineups. You're going to get to face different types of arms. I think all 3 of these teams are good teams. I think Michigan and Nebraska are both, pretty underrated teams. Michigan always gets off to a good start in these early season tournaments. Had a really good weekend in Sunrise, almost went 4-0 with two wins against Oregon State, but ended up getting walked off in the last game of the week by Oregon State. Auburn is kind of off to a slow start offensively. I think they lost their midweek game like 8-0 or something, but they had swept an opening weekend with a couple of one-run wins. But their top 10 ranked team to begin the year. They do have Chris Rembert, I believe, is going to be out, who's really an offensive star for them. He kind of got his ankle rolled up on a slide into second base this past weekend, so I think he's not going to be able to play. And then on Sunday, Nebraska, they're a regional team from last year, a team that won the Big Ten tournament. Usually a team that can hit for some power. And the way the ball was flying out of the park at Globe Life this past weekend, after watching some highlights, I would expect to see some balls flying out of there again this weekend. So it's definitely going to be a test. I think I watched some of Auburn's Saturday games, saw their Saturday starter have a low slot lefty guy like Jamie Arnold, just not the type of velocity that Jamie had, but more like freshman year Jamie throwing low 90s. So, I think all three of these games will be really good tests for you to see exactly where you're at.
Yeah, Auburn and Florida State have some history, right, in the postseason, and it goes way back all the way to, I think, even Chris's playing days with, David Ross, and I think before that with Frank Thomas, the Big Hurt, and all the different times Florida State and Auburn have met up, right? The infamous game back in, 2018, where they beaned J.C. Flowers in extras, and the Noles were down to their final strike and ended up coming back in the Will Zierzow game the next day in a winner-take-all. And then, of course, the final game of Mike Martin Jr.'s tenure at Florida State, right, and that regional at Auburn. So there's some history there. They're really good, man. Auburn's really, really good. I think Coach Thompson does a really nice job there. People expect them to compete for the SEC and to be a potential national seed. So you're going to get a really good matchup early on in a test from, I think, as good of a team as you can play at this point in the year to really find out what you're made of. And then in Michigan, last weekend they beat Oregon State, Stanford, and Arizona, and all of a sudden, all right, is this a sleeper team in the Big Ten? Michigan has some history too, right, with Eric Bakich at coach, and he's now at Clemson. But that's a Michigan team who I think is obviously going to be a major step up from JMU or JU. So that'll be a big one. Who's their Friday night guy? He's pretty good. I think it's like Tate Carey was the first guy who went for Michigan this weekend in Arizona out there. But he was like a freshman All-Big Ten last year and a freshman All-American. Really good arm there, low 90s fastball, really good changeup. And so that's going to be a test for FSU. And then, of course, Nebraska, I think might be, people talk about UCLA and Oregon, but of the traditional Big Ten teams, I would say that Nebraska, of the traditional Big Ten teams, Chavez, welcome back, my friend. This has been good. Of the teams in the Amegy Bank Classic in Arlington. Nebraska's won back-to-back Big Ten tournaments, and they beat UCLA last year, who ended up going to Omaha. It's a Nebraska program who I do believe many people think could make another regional this year. And Brett, to me, that Nebraska game on that Sunday will be unique, especially if you don't know who's starting yet. If you're Florida State in a game 3, you saved Manka for an extended stint. Could you get Beard back, even if it is for a short stint, right? Even if you got Beard for 40 or 50 pitches, that could be a pretty big deal for you this weekend. But that's going to be a tricky game. It's going to be a 3:30, 4 o'clock Sunday game on a getaway type of day for some of these teams. So, I think we've seen from these neutral sites that there are a lot of close games and a lot of games that go into the 8th and the 9th with teams not really able to separate themselves.
Yeah, a lot of really exciting back and forth games that I think produce a lot of big moments and moments that you feel like are going to kind of create a postseason like feel for you pretty early on in the year, and feel like an ACC series and moments that you're going to have later in the year. So you're going to get guys used to that. Looking at Nebraska, I mean, they had 57 hits this past weekend in 4 games against 4 good teams, and all these teams are 3-1. They all get off to good starts pretty much. So yeah, it's going to be really tough. And I think Chris said, kind of a regional type feel. Both of you said that, I think. And I think Link has mentioned it multiple times as well, too. So all 3 days are going to be tough for you. They're going to be your own individual battle. But yeah, I'll be really interested to see if Beard can get out there. I would guess if he is able to get out there, it would be on Sunday, if any day, with Beard and Mendez still going the first 2 days. So, Sunday could be really interesting if he isn't able to go.
And I think it's important to mention, Chavez, before I finish with you on this podcast, you've got to make sure Trey Beard is healthy. And I know there's people who want to see the anticipation of watching him pitch. You need him for the long haul of the year. What we've been told is it's literally a stomach bug. And so you need him back to full strength and feeling good again, back into his routine. So if at any point they feel like this weekend's not the best weekend for him to make his debut, you don't want to throw him off the rails and off the tracks for the rest of the season. This is an awesome tournament and an awesome opportunity. And trust me, I think going into the year, I was penciling in Beard against Auburn on Saturday and good luck hitting that, guys. But you want him for every other series, that's going to be really big for you. And you still have, if I have it right, you have 2 weekends left against non-conference opponents that you should overmatch. Plenty of time for him to ramp back up and get into ACC play the way you want. So you've got to treat that very delicately. So they have a plan in place, I'm sure, to figure things out. And they even told us on the record that they kept Manka with a lighter load on Tuesday, just in case they needed him for an extended stint this past weekend. So I'll be interested to see that. Chris, what are you looking to learn from Florida State out here in the state of Texas in those 3 games?
Well, I mean, I think the Beard thing is the big one. Like you said, I think he's only going to probably throw, if he even did get to throw, in that 40 to 50 pitch range, just because there's no reason to extend him, knowing how much weight he's probably lost, where he's at. But for the team as a whole, just see how they play through adversity. If they get, because they're going to be some times in this weekend, they're going to go through some adversity. How do they handle it? They haven't had to worry about it so far this year. So how are they going to handle that adversity?
No doubt about it. Brett, what are you trying to learn from this weekend? Obviously, you want to go 3-0. I think, you're not the best team in the world if you go 3-0. If you go 0-3, it's not the end of the world. I don't know if either of those scenarios are the most likely outcome percentage-wise on the weekend. So what are you looking forward to watching and learning outside of the overall record coming out of the state of Texas?
Yeah, I just think, do the ABs still look, the same as they've looked the last couple of days? I don't think they'll look exactly the same, but can you get the same quality level of ABs against a much higher level of arms and much higher level of stuff that you're going to see on a consistent basis? And specifically like at the top of the order, and more so not Dowd. I think what you have in Dowd, and especially from his experience, but around Miles with Sheffield or whoever's hitting second in that DH spot, do you get Stetzer some more opportunities against high level collegiate arms? Do you get Putnam involved? I'll be interested to see kind of what they do with DH this weekend, and just do they keep the rest of the lineup the same around that? And how do those at-bats look against that level of arm? Because he should face some pretty decent arms this weekend, I think.
Yeah. All right, schedule. First Michigan, Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern. Number 9, Auburn on Saturday at 4, and against Nebraska Sunday at 3:30. I believe other than that Michigan game, which will start on time, you also have to remember we're in Central Time over in the state of Texas. The Auburn and Nebraska games could get pushed around 30, 45 minutes, an hour, depending on the game that's happening in front of them. So keep an eye out on that. Flowsports.com, I believe, is the way you can watch. I think you can pay $30 for the month and catch a bunch of baseball games. Good luck.
Sport.
It's not, Brett, you and I were watching some of the different games this past weekend that they were doing. It wasn't the worst quality, right? It was a decently produced broadcast. It's just hard to access.
Yeah, it's just it pains me every year when like the best early season games are all behind a paywall instead of just being somewhere where fans can easily access it, because it'd be the best way to grow the sport quickly. And these are games that deserve to be watched by a lot of people, and they're games that, I mean, you had a kid for Vandy hit 3 home runs in a game they lost 5-4 because he made a throwing error on a drop third strike, but his 3 home runs were all 430 plus feet. And I mean, you had to pay $30 to watch that a month. So I don't know. It irks me, but the production's not bad. No, if you do get it, it's a good production. But yeah, it's tough that's what you got to do to watch 3 baseball games.
It's pretty brutal. And I think the biggest mistake people are making in college baseball right now is trying to monetize and capitalize on early season tournaments instead of trying to grow the sport. It's like, how can we make X amount of dollars as quick as possible in one weekend from big fan bases, right? And Arkansas, I believe, had 22,000 people show up against TCU last weekend on a Saturday, which is like one of the biggest regular season crowds in college baseball history. And to me, instead of celebrating it, and you guys know I call both baseball and softball and all of that, softball has gotten the red carpet treatment from national TV, and for good reason. I think it's a fun sport. It moves quick enough. It's starting to slow down a little bit. But, it's a good TV product, but they get the red carpet treatment. And they haven't done that for baseball. to really push that, and especially early in the season, right? Like softball gets the Clearwater Invitational, and it's on ESPN, and it's on Sunday night at 8:00, and they have really figured out that equation to do a great job and get big ratings. And I think that's just as available in baseball if they would just push it. And so this money grab from little sites trying to, charge you a fortune to watch a handful of baseball games, I think is just ultimately bad for the sport. But they're not the only ones doing it. It's D1 baseball's doing it too. The D1 streaming where you have to pay extra. You can already be a subscriber of D1 baseball, and then you got to pay to watch D1's live events that they're doing. And I just think it's, at the end of the day, are you really growing the sport or not? But that all aside, I hope you guys find ways to watch it. Maybe you can share passwords. I don't know how that works. Brett, you and I will be there in person, so that'll be nice. And ultimately, that aside, it should be a pretty fun weekend overall. And Florida State's going to learn a lot, I think, about their team after 2 weekends in the college baseball season. Chavez, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, I just appreciate y'all having me on with you guys. It was fun. I'm sorry my Wi-Fi went a little crazy there at the end. I don't know what happened.
No, it was pretty funny. I'm not going to lie. And
I did like some of the posts that I saw. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. So, Brett, anything else before we say goodbye? And we'll maybe reconvene in Dallas. See you very soon, right, man? A couple of days. We'll both be boots on the ground in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah, I've got a 6 a.m. flight on Friday, so wish me luck with waking up for that. But I'll see you in Texas.
Well, you guys have fun. That's gonna be fun for y'all.
Yeah, I stayed in Jacksonville because my flight's out of JAX. So went to the game last night. A lot of Noles, got to have a tailgate with the Jacksonville Seminole Club, and they were great, and it was fun as always. Note for the Jacksonville Noles: 2 more times the Noles are coming to Duval, so they'll play the Gators at the baseball grounds at VyStar, and then they play UNF, a rare game at UNF over there near the town center. So I think we're going to get out of here. I'm about to go to dinner at the Cheesecake Factory. We don't have one of those in Tallahassee. So.
You in the Jacksonville Cheesecake Factory.
I love
it. Business, man, when I'm here in town. So, gentlemen, a pleasure. Chavez, we'll have you back on very soon. Brett, you and I will reconvene in Dallas and see if we can't get another episode out. For those of you listening, we do appreciate it. You're watching on YouTube, listening on Apple, on Spotify, Alumni Hall, Metro Deli. You guys are the real MVPs. Y'all make this thing possible. And please like and subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a review and share this thing with your friends. So for Chris Chavez, for Brett Nevitt, I'm Mario Masudi. You've been watching and listening to Sunday Golds.